I think it's safe to say that everyone wants to be right about everything. Scratch that, everyone thinks they are right about everything. But there's a big difference between feeling right and being right. Being wrong and being right feel the same. Realizing you're wrong feels bad, but until you realize you're wrong, you feel right and good. So you'd prefer your blissful ignorance. If this is wrong, I don't want to be right. But suppose for the sake of argument, you actually want to live in reality and not a magical feel-good fantasy world. Weirdo. In that case, you don't want to just maximize true beliefs, because to accomplish that, you can just believe everything, meaning contradictory things. That maximizes true beliefs, but also false ones. So really, when you're talking about being right, you're talking about maximizing your ratio of true to false beliefs, or your net true beliefs. And that makes sense because you can't really know what's true for sure. The trick to being right is mostly a matter of identifying and removing untrue beliefs. In other words, the key to being right is knowing when you're wrong. You can kind of expand that into a step-by-step process. First, you have to work on realizing that you could be wrong, which is counterintuitive. You'd naively think that the kind of person who seemed to be right about everything ends up that way because they have really good sources of information or a really good process or talent for identifying the truth. You may also think that this would result in a lot of confidence or even arrogance. But really, it's more the opposite. Being constantly full of self-doubt and being uncertain and non-committal about any of life's questions is really the starting attitude for being more right than the average person. Once you're in a nebbish state of constant self-doubt and self-criticism, you have to start actually checking to see if you're wrong. Belief has to translate to action. If you could be wrong, then you should entertain and investigate other explanations. You should determine what could disprove the veracity of your belief and attempt to disprove it. Look for counter-evidence. Seek out opposing arguments. Then, if you do find that you're wrong, you need to actually change your mind, which turns out to be really hard. That goes back to the mental, emotional reaction you have to realizing you're wrong about something. Realizing you're wrong hurts, especially if you've invested a lot of time into endorsing a particular position, or you've based your entire career on it or something. So maybe don't do that whenever possible. Don't make your entire identity or livelihood depend on a single thing being true. Uncertainty produces anxiety, and changing your mind reduces your feeling of certainty, so it makes your brain hurt. It's not as hard as starting to floss every day, but it's still pretty hard. But it gets easier. First, intellectually, you can take solace in the fact that becoming right allows you to be what you already thought you were. As soon as you change an incorrect belief to a correct one, then you're not wrong anymore. You were wrong. Now you're right, and doubly so. You're right about the question at issue, but you're also right about having been wrong, which you no longer are. That should feel good. As for any potential embarrassment you might feel in admitting to others that you made a mistake, I found that's actually a pretty baseless worry. If you correct yourself quickly and gracefully, you can often avoid embarrassment almost entirely. That's because admitting that you've been wrong about something is really unusual. People are actually shocked by it, like deer in the headlights shocked, like they don't know how to react. What? You can change your mind? You can do that? You completely disarm them, and suddenly there's nothing they can do to you. Like, you responded rationally to the situation, so if they choose to linger on it, suddenly they're the weird ones, holding up the conversation for no reason. Really, just as soon as you get enough information to determine there's a significant chance you're wrong, just go, well shit, I guess I stand corrected, and just move on like you always believed the right thing. Advance the conversation, don't look back. That actually works. You should err on the side of being overzealous and conceding very quickly, even if someone hasn't made an ironclad case against your current position. The first reason for that is that it counters your natural inclination to wait too long. Second, it's easier to correct from that. If you refuse to respond to information that turns out to be really solid, you seem like a stubborn asshole, and then if you do change your position after that stubborn display, it looks opportunistic, like you haven't actually changed your mind, but you're trying to salvage what's left of your reputation. If instead you concede in response to tenuous evidence, you seem charitable. If you revert your opinion when it turns out the counter evidence was misleading, then you're just being consistent in changing your opinion based on the best information that you have. But of course, you can avoid these situations entirely by just not publicly taking positions on things you don't really understand. If you're not sure, just say, well, I'm not sure, I haven't really looked into it. But to the extent that you have a position, you should express it tentatively to allow that position to be challenged and corrected as soon as possible. If you update quickly, the changes in your positions tend to evolve more gradually instead of taking huge, obvious swings that people are more likely to call you out on. So, here's to being right about everything, eventually.